That is 2024 and January 22nd, 2025. 2024 and January 22nd, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded that? Sorry.
Susan?
Susan, thank you. All right, and I will do a roll call for meeting minutes, starting with Susan Gravelisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Christopher Bowen. Did we lose Mr. Bowen?
I don't see him. Did we lose him?
Looks like we did.
I think we did. I will move on to Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Tom Skorowski,
Yes.
John Stomatopoulos,
Yes.
Joshua Miranda,
Yes.
Chris Sermella.
Yes.
Excellent. Meeting minutes approved. All right. Next up on the agenda, we have January invoices. I'm going to see if I can share. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here so that we can see these and you're not relying on my numbers. Is everybody able to see this screen?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So for January invoices, we have the typical left field invoice, Perkins Eastman and Consigli invoices. This month totals, or for the month of January, totaling $882,289.49. I think we have to do these separately. So I'm going to
Yes.
start with, we have left fields design development invoice number 47 in the amount of $118,112.
Motion to approve invoice 47 for left field for $118,112.
Second.
Thank you.
And can I just note that Chris Bowen has returned. He's on his phone with the number ending 3748.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to do the roll call for invoices for left field. Susan Gravelisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson, Christopher Bowen.
Yes.
Excellent. Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Tom Skorowski,
Yes.
John Stomatopoulos,
Yes.
Joshua Miranda,
Yes.
and Chris Sermella.
Yes.
Next up, we have Perkins Eastman's invoice number 7 for design development, which also includes geotech and geoenvironmental services, site surveys, and traffic studies. So the total amount of their invoice is $737,177.49.
Motion to approve Perkins Eastman invoice total $737,177.49.
Second.
Okay, great, thank you. And roll call starting.
What was that number again? 737?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Susan Gravelisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Christopher Bowen,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Tom Skorowski,
Yes.
John Stomatopoulos,
Yes.
Joshua Miranda,
Yes.
and Chris Sermella.
Yes.
Thank you.
Linda, Rich Fiscay has also joined.
Thank you.
And I'm a yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Too late.
I will, go out of order and say yes. Rich Fiscay, thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, we have Consigli's pre-construction invoice number 25 in the amount of $27,000.
Motion to approve Consigli Construction invoice 25 in the amount of $27,000.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was that? Who seconded it?
Chris
Me.
Jamella.
Thank you. All right, roll call. Susan Gravellisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson, Christopher Bowen,
Yes.
Rich Fiscay,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Tom Skorowski,
Yes.
John Stamatopoulos,
It's a yes. I'm sorry. Couldn't unmute it.
oh, no worries, and Joshua Miranda,
Yes.
and Chris Ciaramella.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right. That was it for housekeeping items. Next up, we have design development update. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you, Linda. Just got a handful of slides to go through tonight, and I don't want to bury the lead. So I'm going to start with the wonderful news that we completed the estimating process, and both estimates are at, in fact, just a bit under budget. So that is fantastic news. We'll get into it a little bit deeper. I'm going to share my screen and just go through a couple slides as an update here. Once I get my Zoom controls. Okay, so this is very similar to a slide you folks have seen in the last few months. It's just tracking progress of where we're at. We're trying to land the plane in this design development phase before we proceed into the next phase of the project is called the 60% construction document phase. So transitioning into more technical design and production. We're going to run through the cost tonight. Thankfully, there's really not a lot we have to talk about because the numbers came back good. And the next immediate focus of the project team is to get this all wrapped up and submitted to MSBA by March 7th. So what I mean by this submitted to MSBA, you'll remember the design update that we did last month, the schedule updates, the schedule hasn't changed that you folks have seen. The budget numbers you'll see tonight, all that really needs to be loaded into their format of reports. They like to see some descriptive paragraphs updated about what the building committee's been up to, what the team's been up to, some updates on permitting. So that's our next step, and we'll go into a little more look ahead on the last slide here. In the meantime, a quick permitting update. We have completed the EENF, the first step of the MEPA process, and we submitted the big step, the middle step, the draft environmental impact report, or DEIR, to MEPA on February 16th. That's in its review period now. We expect to get a response back with questions in the coming weeks. That will set up the final step in the MEPA process, the FEIR, a final environmental impact report, that we will get in July earlier if we can, depending on the how the DEIR comment phase goes after they finish reviewing it. We're also actively working with MassDOT. We do need a temporary construction access permit to start demolition of the dog track. That's in progress, and we have some other MassDOT permitting for the full project that will follow phase one. We're also doing Mass DEP permitting. We secured the notice of intent with Revere Conservation for phase one. So with the exception of just dotting the i's, crossing the t's on the demo permit there, we have all the environmental and state permitting we need to get the demo phase underway. And just as a reminder, when we finish the MIPA process by August, we'll be going back to the Conservation Commission to get the notice of intent filed and ultimately approved for the full project. So permitting high level, on schedule, everything so far is going according to plan. So I wanted to just do a quick overall budget reminder, and I'm gonna jump out of the slide for 1 second because I just want you folks to sort of get a little bit used to seeing the budget. I know you can't read what's slowly coming up on the screen right now, but this is the master project budget that we track everything in. This is the format MSBA likes to see it in. This is in all the monthly reports. When I go back to that slide, these gray categories, feasibility study, agreement, administration, architecture, engineering, construction, this is what's on the slide. So these gray bars here sum up everything in that category below them. So I wanted to just.
And Brian, I'll just
Good.
share with everybody that there is a copy of that complex grid that you just showed in the packet. So if you didn't get a chance to look at it before the meeting, it's in your email from Linda that had all of the meeting documents attached.
Excellent, thank you. So I just wanted to sort of remind people of where we're at with the budget and the difference when we're talking construction budget versus total project budget. So the estimating process is focused on the construction category. So the approved total of the construction category is just a hair over 412 million. The entire project budget reflects a $497 million total. But you got to remember that includes the already funded and mostly expended $4.3 million feasibility study. So the project that we got approved back in late winter last year, up through the city council, is the $493 million project, since the 4.3s are already funded. So when you hear us talk about total project budget, we're always referencing this $493.2 million number. Inside of that number is the estimated construction budget of 412. That 412 is what's gotten all the attention in the last month and a half in terms of the estimating process. So from a simplistic point of view, we are right on the budget. We always do two estimates, one through the designer, PM&C is their estimator, and our CM, who's going to build the project, does their own estimate. They both came in 0.08% apart from each other, which is phenomenally close, especially on a project of this size. The designer estimate is about 345,000 under budget, and we're about $8,200 under budget on the consigli side. When we have a CM on a CM at risk Chapter 149A project, we always go with their number for the MSBA reporting of the budget. The other part of this that I'm gonna hit these bullet points, and I'd like to make a point on. I consider this on budget, not necessarily under. We did not cut any scope, do any value management, value engineering to achieve this number. If we needed that, if we came in over budget, this would have been a more complex meeting because we would have gone through a whole list of ideas on scope, things that could be cut from the building or simplified from the building to reduce the budget. We don't need to do that. We are still carrying an appropriate for this phase of the project design and estimating contingency inside of these numbers. That's a number that's in here for items that just haven't developed yet. You got to keep in mind, we've got another 9 or 10 months where the design team is putting pen to paper and writing specifications. So that is 6% of the direct costs is in there for items that none of us see yet, but will materialize. We also have cost escalation at 5.5% built into these estimates. And based on some really complex discussions, and I appreciate the team and consigli borrowing into this, but we feel it's prudent to include, there's a 0.5% included in these numbers that we're calling a tariff contingency. It's a very murky crystal ball to try to look into right now, whether they'll exist, whether they won't exist, what they apply to. But it's something on a project of this magnitude we couldn't ignore. So Consigli more or less came up with an order of magnitude for what they think the impact would be, and we've carried 0.5% in the budget for that purpose. I will say with any contingency on the project in any budget that doesn't get spent at the end of the day, the money returns to the city. So as we go through the 60% construction and 90% construction document phase, we're going to be doing more estimates. We're going to be bidding out things, and this could evolve. So we didn't have to remove anything, but we're not really in the position to add anything. So as an example to that, these numbers do not include lighting at the 2 sports fields. We've established what that would cost to implement. It's about $1.2 million, $1.3 million. At a future point when we're estimating, if we find ourselves comfortably under budget, or if we get good bid results, we could entertain bringing in additional scope. By the other flip side of the coin, if at a future phase we're over, we're going to need to talk value management, value engineering. But for tonight, we're on the budget. And the last point I wanted to make was that we, whenever we're this close to the budget and under, if we were over, we'd get the number down to what it needed to be. If we're under, we're going to submit this to MSBA as on budget. So this $8,291 that Consigli is under, we're still going to plug in the total project budget and carry the $412 million that is already in the MSBA budget. We basically are putting this $8,200 into the design contingency. That's typical. It's no problem with MSBA. It's easiest for them if we are this close to just stay on budget, bank the small amount of savings in a contingency, and see what happens later. I think I saw a chat, so I just wanted to pause. Okay, well.
Yeah, and Brian, if I can just jump in for a minute, I want to thank Joe Lewin for talking me through a little bit of this, and just want to highlight for the team a few points that I think are relevant. And the first one is that even though we're looking at these numbers right now, to Brian's point, as we go through the process, everything is going to get refined. And so we started way back at the beginning with very little information, with the approved construction budget of $412,006,854. The process that we're at now, with a lot more information and a lot more detail in the design, is where we're coming in at this $411,998,563 number, right? So still very similar. It's a good sign that we're on budget, but as we continue to do the work, as they do the demolition and see what they find there, that's how these numbers can still fluctuate. These aren't promised numbers, these are estimates. And so we just should all keep that in mind as we go forward. And that's exactly what Brian was speaking to. It could be, that at a next phase, when we get to the 60% construction drawings, and I'm not a construction person, but think about 60%, these drawings are 60% sure, right? Then we're going to have a lot more accurate information to estimate with, which could refine these numbers again, either up or down. And so it's just important to keep in mind that this is great news, that we're on budget, as Brian is using the term. There is some padding here that we can think about down the road. The mayor has given us a directive that he wants us to try to get 10 million under this number. So these are all things that we're going to be discussing as we go forward. Even the tariff contingency, 0.5% sounds very small, but in a project budget this large, 0.5% is still a couple $2 million. So if it turns out that we don't need that couple $2 million, that's where we can make decisions about, does that become the first couple million toward the 10 million that the mayor has asked us to find? Or does that become lighting at the fields? And these are big questions that need a lot of input from the community, but especially from the mayor's office. So I just wanted to just highlight those key points because they're going to be important to us going forward.
Great points, Dr. Kelly. I'm just quickly seeing if we only have one or two more slides here, so I think we'll go through them and then we can sort of recap, see if folks have questions. And let me try to scope. Okay, so quick look ahead. You know, it's sort of these phases all have different names and they have milestones within the sort of the design field and the MSBA field, but we're going to continue doing what we're doing. Really on a day-to-day basis. The design team is going to continue refining the drawings, the specifications. We're going to continue meeting with various parts of the city and client to hone in on ultimately having bid documents. We're going to continue all permitting activities because that is so critical path for us. We are going to be starting the process to bid the site demolition scope. So if you hear me say phase one means demolition of the old dog track foundations and some of the paving down there, not all the paving. We're going to keep some of that and use it as a laydown area. So a little look ahead to the March meeting. Just a few things that we're going to have a little more busy work next month. We're going to have some quotes for an LSP, a licensed site professional, to support some geo-environmental work in phase one. Part of that is soil pre-characterization. Part of it's on-site monitoring when we start digging. They're the ones that are licensed to identify soil conditions, see if they meet what we thought was there, et cetera. So we're going to have a proposal to award that to a company called Sanborn Head, who's already working on the project. We're going to have a commitment for getting some additional groundwater monitoring wells dug out there that's really going to help hone in on some details of the foundation design as we go from this DD point into construction drawings. And we're going to quickly go through 3 items that relate to the security system that through the process, meeting with Revere, meeting with police, meeting with the IT folks, are going to have to be proprietary. On all of these public projects, there's a process to make things proprietary. This committee has to vote on them. But in short, these 3 items, the access control system, the video management system, and the camera systems, all have to be certain systems or they won't jive with everything else in the city and the other schools and what's in the squad cars, what the police use. So Revere is on this platform, and we need to identify anything on this project that isn't going to be an open spec, a competitive spec. To date, this is all we know of that has to be proprietary. So we'll do a quick summary of those items and why in March, and seek a motion to approve those as proprietary items in the spec moving forward.
Brian, there's actually 2, Pam missed 2 more, but they're both security related. There's actually 2 other items from the security that are going to have to be proprietary that are
Okay.
what the school is using right now. So there's
A handful of items for security. Okay.
There's 5
This
items.
was the list at the time we
That
went
was
to
the list we had 3 hours ago.
Yep. Okay. So that's really it for tonight. Again, if we were significantly over or significantly under budget, I think we would have had a lot of decisions to start to make, but I think this is a great place to be, and I think we, the team, can just sort of put our heads down, get through this site bidding process, get design development submitted to MSBA, and keep moving. Try to make good on the schedule. So I think we can address we'll address some of the chat.
Any
questions when we get
any
to public
questions
comment.
from the committee?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but it's not public comment yet. We're starting with the committee.
That's okay.
Yep. Any school building committee questions, comments? I don't see any hands up. I think we usually had just other or new business. Does anyone have new business from the committee before we go to public comment?
No, I'll
Seeing,
just express thanks to the design team and to Consigli. I know it's been an arduous couple of weeks for you all, trying to get this stuff all finalized, and we appreciate the hard work that I'm sure went into finding the numbers that you did. So thank you very much for that.
thank you. So I think it might be easiest to do any verbal public comment questions first, and then if we haven't covered what's in the chat, we can get back to what's in the chat. So if we have public comment, name and address for the
Yes.
meeting minute record.
Brian,
and,
I believe the
you go for
chat
it.
is with Donna, who's asking questions now, so it would be
Thank you
the,
so much.
you're welcome.
Thank you so much. And I apologize if I have not been a part of this in the beginning, and I intend to be a part of it from here on in. If my questions are not related, if you guys have the finances worked out, and this has no payment or no pressure on citizens, the rest of my questions are just about design. But I see no legitimate representation from the citizens as well as from the school. You have one teacher on your committee. I was an educator. I was on a building committee. I was a part of a brand new school. I am very upset right now. So my first question, as you can see, and I'm going to list 3 or 4 questions, and then you can answer them so that my 5 minutes, that's all we get, guys. 5 minutes out of every month. That's not fair for those that may be paying for this. So I'm going to list my questions, and respectfully, I hope that you can answer those. The first one is, if you can answer the question without passing the buck, and if you can pass the buck, please pass it to the people that can answer the question. The rest of that 50%, as much as we appreciate that you're keeping that money down, there are conflicting, I pay attention. The last council meeting, you said it was going to be an additional 30 million. Okay, and that was a question, and the counselors were not happy with that. So you do have a balance of people here that are not happy and are not being heard. Okay, so I don't want to, there is no disagreement. I know what the facts are. I dealt with lawyers. A fact is a fact, and we cannot disagree that you have a limited amount of people on your team for our representation. I'm sorry. That's number one. So if you would wish to answer those questions, that's number one. My second question, because I still have 5 minutes,
One more,
is
excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, Donna.
I would
but
prefer
just
to finish my 5 minutes.
For public record, you need to give your name and address for public record. That was supposed to be at the very
Absolutely.
beginning.
My public record, Donna Nugent, absolutely, thank you. Donna Nugent, 120 Conan Street, Revere, Massachusetts.
Thank you so
Okay?
much, Donna.
Educator of 24 years, Massachusetts teacher, public school, MTA. I belong to the Mass Teachers Association. I'm a union member, and I absolutely appreciate education more than you ever know. Number 2, my question is, in terms of design, your school, and you demonstrated windows right across the first floor, okay? We were sitting ducks before we got our new school. Are they bulletproof? What type of materials are you using, these new materials that are completely bulletproof? And that is, of course, what you need. This is a time over the past 25 years where we have to worry about those things. Number 3, I see craft rooms. I see things that, to me, speak to compensating for a vocational school. I do not see issues that involve reading labs, science labs, and of course you're going to put them in, but how are they going to be presented if there is only one teacher that is on your committee? The community person, I have no idea who that is. You can give me that name today, but I've tried for the last month to reach somebody. There is no one. The communication is not good. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a 2. If it was a grade, I would give it an F. I am so sorry. I'm happy that you made progress in what you said tonight. I heard you, but it doesn't sound like progress from my end. So I hope you'll appreciate that. Let's see, what else did I have? The vocational, I want to make this quick. And I guess what I just want to do is re-emphasize the fact that schools and their theories and philosophies go in cycles. What you guys might need now from this current and wonderful superintendent, she's going to tell you, well, this is what we need, right? You need more vocational. You need things like whatever you're going to put in there that might be a little bit more vocational oriented or STEAM oriented, or I was really into doing sciences. Okay. So whatever you decide to put it in, I know from doing my own inclusion programs and creating them for the state, that we were queens and kings that developed that. 10 years later, it was futsy wutsy. It was, they didn't do it anymore. So things go in cycles, and superintendents come and go. Are you thinking long-term safety, long-term bulletproof? I'm not seeing it, and I'm not seeing the communicators. I'm not seeing the liaisons. I'm done, and I appreciate you letting me have my say.
Thank you, Donna.
I'll just say to Donna, there is a lot in the questions that you asked, and I'm happy to meet with you and go into more detail of the work that this team has been doing for how many meetings? What number is this, Susan?
70 something.
This is number
72.
72, but that's not including all of the public meetings and all of the breakout rooms that we
I've
had.
gone to those.
Yep.
I've
And-
seen them.
So
There's
that's not
nothing to
included.
repeat.
So we're
I
probably
can-
close to
Excuse
100.
me, this is Dawn Goriello, I'm the architect. I just want to point out, I just pulled up my slide from the SBC meeting back on 10/30/2024, where we gave an update on the focus group meetings that we held. October 9th, 16th, 17th, 18th, we held over 19 meetings, over 72 teachers and staff, and over 40 students participated. So those
Was
were not
that
public meetings,
exposed
those are
to-
users. I just want to share the facts.
What the facts, though, the facts are that when did this happen? All of 2024, all of 2023? What's the year span? Because I am trying to jump in on this after getting dismayed in watching some of this. So yes, I am jumping in, but at the same time, those facts are not prepared on paper for us. We shouldn't have to keep saying, oh, it's our fault. We didn't go to that meeting. You are not exercising our rights to expose that information in writing, not on a website necessarily, but a fact sheet for our future finances. Is that available, and where can I get it?
So let me just jump in on at least the financial question. Out of the total project budget, the Massachusetts School Building Authority is reimbursing 48% of it. So 52% is being paid for by Revere. There was no tax override on this. Taxes will not go up as a direct result of this budget. The city is funding it with tax revenues more or less from a few sources that were presented by the CFO. But this was not a tax override project. People's property taxes will not be going up to fund this.
How can I know who is taking on that balance when you say there are several? That's what I want to know. I marched on the State House steps when these big corporations started stepping in and telling teachers what to do. So what I want to know is, what are these, or who are these people? Are they in the city of Revere? There are so many people that have their hands in finances from all over the country. Who is doing this, and when are they going to have a say as to a teacher that says, hey, look, I have to follow the mass curriculum, and a corporation says, yeah, but we paid for this, so here's our curriculum. That's what happened to the school in Rainham. We were getting materials from a corporation, a Ford company that had no idea what a sixth grader thinks like. And so these things can happen because I lived that reality. So I preferred you guys to have an open mind for me, just as I have an open mind for you. I appreciate it so much.
Donna, call my office. I know you have my number and we can schedule a time. I can go through more of the details with you.
Is it written down for the entire, Diane, thank you so much, but shouldn't the balance of that be on paper? Yes or no? I don't want to be a pain, but shouldn't that be written down for us? In case
And
things fall apart.
I believe it is. I might ask Rich Risquet,
Okay.
who's the city CFO and who's also on the building committee, to come in. But I can assure you that we are not making any partnerships with any corporations that are going to dictate to teachers what they're going to teach, how they're going to teach it, or anything of that nature. You and I are definitely very much aligned in making
Okay.
sure that we don't handcuff our teachers that way.
That's great. Good to hear. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Let me just,
Bulletproof windows, please.
this is something we can revisit at a future meeting, but there, Dawn, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but we are going bullet glass at the main entries, the security vestibules. The rest of the building is hurricane glass, which is not the same as bulletproof glass, but absolutely provides a extended time to get through it. This is something we talked about on some of Left Field's other projects in terms of if you happen to be in a community where you have to put in hurricane glass that's designed to take an impact. Takes a lot longer for someone to get through that, malicious person to get through it than regular glass. So there's a lot of detail on this, but we do have bulletproof
Yes.
glass at the secure entries.
I
The
think
rest of the
it's,
building is hurricane glass.
I
Is
think it's
that made
called
of
ballistic.
nanomaterials?
Excuse
I'm
me,
so
Donna,
sorry.
let me
I'm
just-
not here that often. May I ask this question, please? Thank you so much. Nanomaterials, are you using that extra special nanomaterial or not
No.
bullet, truly bulletproof? Somebody comes through those windows. We were sitting ducks. My faculty room was sitting, it looked exactly the way you guys designed it, is how we had it in our old school. And when Columbine came up, we knew we were sitting ducks. Okay, so what is that? Are you using nanomaterials? What exactly are you using? And will that cost go up if it's not efficient enough?
I'm not familiar with what you mean by nanomaterials, but we can certainly revisit the glass and present more detail about
Brian,
it.
I believe Dawn was going to respond. Let's let Dawn respond.
And Dan can certainly chime in as well. It's ballistic glass. Nothing is bulletproof when it comes to glass. It's ballistic.
Well, there
It's-
is, but that's okay. I'm sorry. Go
There
ahead.
is, but they're usually 6
It's-
inches.
Yeah, it's, you can't really see through it. It's
You're
so
not really
thick.
able to see through it.
So without getting into too much security detail, there's strategically placed ballistic glass priced in the building and planned for, and that is working with our security consultant. So without getting into too much detail, there are safety measures being made, and it's in line with best practices.
Excuse me.
Thank you.